Hello, this is Gambia24 with me, Sohna Tunkara. A look at our news bulletin. Journalists call for transparency in distribution of government $15 million relief package. Gambians disagree on whether the nighttime curfews will be extended. The Gambia records 29 new COVID-19 cases and 1 new death. These and more coming up on Gambia24. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. The first reading of the bill that could bring about a new supreme law in the Gambia was done by the Minister of Justice at the National Assembly in Banjul today. Gambians are hopeful that National Assembly members will, after several weeks of deliberations, do the right thing by adopting the Constitution. Fatoumata Fati has more.
Gambians are expecting a new supreme law that will represent their wishes and aspiration in terms of governance, and are hopeful lawmakers will not be influenced by party politics on whether to adopt or not to adopt the new constitution. Balang B. Marena, a graduate from the University of the Gambia, said he is confident that the coming weeks will see fruitful discussions in Parliament with the interest of the country at the heart of it.
Yes, because I have a high belief in some of the representatives that are the National Assembly members that are representing their various areas. There are quite a number of them that are very frank. I think they will all come together today at least, and then look, they look for the national interest instead of their party interest or individual interest. So I guess that today will be a fruitful discussion.
Usman Jase, a final year law student of the University of the Gambia, hopes to see the new constitution going through a referendum and subsequently adopted.
Is very much necessary. A constitution is a representation of the wishes, the desires and aspirations of the citizen. Citizens are the sovereign people of this country. They have the right to determine how their country should be governed. They have the right to determine how their resources will be allocated and how resources will be distributed. And all those things are catered for in the constitution. It is therefore necessary that when such a constitution is taken to the National Assembly, it is taken through a referendum process that is to ensure that people participate.
Jase said that the inclusion of a term limit in the draft constitution will help prevent leaders from overstaying in power and can minimize coups.
It has been the history in Africa throughout our ages is that when certain people assume office, if they do not want to leave office, they foster and establish a single party state. And we have seen this in many countries. We have seen this in Equatorial Guinea, we've seen this in Cameroon and several other countries. Now as a people, we say that system is not desirable. We therefore ought to introduce term limits so that indeed if you serve for a particular number of terms, you give chance to the younger generation and other people to also come on board. That is to ensure that we get rid of self-perpetuating role in power, we get rid of coup d'etats.
Attorney General and Minister of Justice will table before us the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia.
Among a series of reforms undertaken by the Gambian government, the drafting of a new constitution has been an important part of the process. The new constitution has been regarded by many as progressive. For iAfrica TV, I am Fatoumata Fati.
Gambians are hopeful that the National Assembly will adopt the draft constitution. From that, following the approval of a $15 million bailout package for media houses in the Gambia to alleviate the financial impact brought about the pandemic, views have been expressed whether it is right or wrong to do this. iAfrica TV seeks the views of a journalism trainer and a managing editor of a leading local newspaper. Khadijatou Seka reports.
While the Ministry of Information has said this support to media houses is not meant to affect media independence, some journalists are of the view that accepting could jeopardize their credibility and editorial independence. But others think this support is a step in the right direction. One such person is Demba Kande, a journalism trainer and lecturer at the University of the Gambia.
The money could be affect any editorial content that is published by the media. That's certainly, we've seen that in many parts of the world, including in established democracies around the world. In Europe, the government supports private media as well, and that has not led in any way to compromises in terms of editorial lines.
Mr. Kande also said that the amount of money allocated is not enough, considering the impact of COVID-19 on the entire media sector. However, he said media houses should use the money for its intended purpose.
The government approved $15 million in support to the Gambian media sector. $15 million is a lot of money, with all due respect, but in the context of COVID-19 and in the context of national development, $15 million for the entire media sector is not much. And as such, there is need to prioritize what to spend that money on. And I think government made that clear when they said that this is mostly for recurring expenditures in the form of taxes, in the form of salaries for staff, and so on and stuff. So it's important that the media chiefs understand.
Some journalists have called for accountability and transparency in the manner the money will be distributed. The managing editor of Foria newspaper, Sam Sar, said, in order to achieve such transparency, an independent body should oversee the management and distribution of the funds.
If money is to be given to us, we should be ready to account for that. That's all. That's the issue. It's not a question of whether the money is to be taken or not, but it should be accounted for. And as it stands, that is really the position, because you have to list down the items that you need and submit it. And after you've done that to a committee, an independent committee, then they vet it and see that it's in tandem with the guidelines, and if that is the case, it is endorsed and the money amount will be released. And then the next thing is to ensure that it is spent according to what is requested with supporting documents. That's accountability. That's the issue which was being stated.
The surge in the number of coronavirus cases crippled the economic and health of media outlets in the Gambia. Some media houses have laid off staff and cut off on coverage of vital local issues due to financial difficulties. For iAfrican News, I am Khadija Toseka.
$15 million has been allocated to media houses to alleviate financial impact posed by the pandemic. Now, the second declaration of a nighttime curfew in the Gambia will end on Wednesday, and it's not yet clear if it will be extended. The government said it was important to restrict movements at night to cope the spread of the coronavirus. However, there have been mixed views about it. More in this report by Khadija Toseka again.
Bakari Kanyi is a social worker and a businessman, and he is not sure if the curfew had an impact. He said the idea to extend or not to extend the curfew should depend on whether or not it has saved lives.
If the impact of COVID-19 has affected many people, I suggest we remove the curfew. However, if its purpose has helped in safeguarding the life of people, I will want it to continue, because we want something that could harm human beings. We only want our people to be safe. What we should do is to leave the health expert to oversee everything, because this is a sickness that has no cure.
However, a man who introduced himself as Mofaya said it is important to extend the curfew. He said good health is critical to the country's peace.
I want the curfew to be extended. If you hear that a country is peacefully is because of health, the curfew should be extended.
Paseku Sise, a taxi driver, said it would be a hard blow to his business if the curfew is extended. Sise said what the government should do is to allow movement and ensure people to adhere to other preventive measures.
If the curfew should be extended, it will be a very big disappointment. Before extending it, they should help us with preventive measures like masks, hand sanitizers and social distancing, if they can implement it and impose it as a guarantee law, that even we see any passenger without face mask, they will not enter our vehicle. We can empower that. It will help us rather than extending it. If you extend it, it will not favor us.
The coronavirus outbreak has affected both the health, economic and social lives of the people. However, several of the restrictive measures adopted by the government have not prevented its risks. For iAfrica News, I am Khadija Seka.
From that report by Khadija Seka, the second declaration of a nighttime curfew will end on Wednesday. Moving on, for several years, non-Gambians from Guinea, Ivory Coast and Nigeria have been leading the importation and sale of bitter kola in the Gambia, whereas the demand for the seeds of the flowering plant found mostly in the tropical rainforests of West Africa and Central Africa increased during the coronavirus pandemic. Gambians have joined the business, selling business rather. Our Makalo reports.
Bitter kola is now serving as a source of income for many Gambians, especially those who saw their jobs shut down by the numerous measures to cope the spread of COVID-19. Bitter kola has long been used in West African countries as a remedy for several ailments including cough, stomach complication and fever. Emmanuel, a Nigerian who sells bitter kola at Westfield, said the business is booming because people have now realized the effectiveness of the nuts.
Well, it's moving. It's not only the Gambia. You know, bitter kola is a herbal medicine. So they eat it the whole world. Understand? So it's moving. It cures many diseases. You know, this reduces sugar content. It boosts the immune system. It cures if like a snake bites somebody now. If you eat it, it cures it. Well, there are many destiny for bitter kola. Even the leaves, you can use the leaves, cook it and drink it. It cures malaria.
Pase Husise, who is in his early 30s, said bitter kola served as an appetizer for him.
From my observation, since I started bitter kola, I first observe more than
bitter kola, from my observation, since I started consuming it, I have experienced a lot of changes in my body. It also gives me an appetite immediately when I consume it. Also recently, we have seen many people selling it, but if you have some of it rotten, you have to be careful when buying.
Abdullah, a Gambian bitter kola vendor at Westfield, said he is grateful for the earnings he made selling bitter kola. Those sales are not as good as he would expect sometimes.
Every business has its own obstacles. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, as business is all about gaining and losing. But since I started this business of selling bitter kola, I am grateful. Insert 3.
For several years, Garcinia kola have been parts of plant spat that West Africans appreciate and regard as helpful in treating all sorts of complications. The bitter kola seed have been used for liver disorder, throat infections, colic, head or chest cold and cough. It is also used as a chewing stick. For iAfrica TV News, our Makalu.
Now on to our latest COVID-19 update. The Gambia's Ministry of Health confirmed 29 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday, with 1 dead. The total number of confirmed cases in the country is now 3,405. The first case of coronavirus was reported in March this year, and since then, a total of 103 people have died from the disease. The Gambia currently has 1,579 active cases and 1,723 recoveries. According to the latest situation report, 106 patients have been discharged from treatment centers. Meanwhile, 77 people are in quarantine, and there are 440 probable cases and a crude case fatality ratio of 3.0%. With that brings this edition of Gambia24 with me, Sohna Tunkara, to an end. Good evening.
di wusi coronavirus lu lawla jangoro bi ak deger boppa ngala jox ma sa noppa corona can be transferred to another. If a person sneezes, that doesn't mean the person has it.
Alaikum salam. Sen fan bi ñaata la? Abi. Comme yele la.
Sorry, si balal ma.
Balal
ma. Check la bala ngay def.
Nga gele nañu fe corona.
Lo gis? Mu ngi ma yow no ma. Yow de yow yalla rek la fay. Yow fo amé li man dama am ay bérébu liggéeykaay yu bare te dama bëgg a saytu suma liggéeykat yi seen wér gu yaram
dëgg la
te lii dama ko war a am ut naa ko fu nekk mënuma koo am
gis nga lii nag am ko yóbbu na de mu fi
lii foo ko amee yow
gis nga bu fekkee danga koo soxla
waaw
dawal Kairaba Avenue boo jógee Westfield mel ni kuy dem Kairaba bi
waaw
booy rombu Alliance Franco rek
waaw
rombu AIC
waaw
building bi ci topp
waaw
ñu koy wax smartphone house boo fa duggee rek loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko
yow man foofu dinaa ci mën a am lu bari lu tolloog fukka
loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko te ni nga ko bëggee noonu lañ koy defee
gis nga yow da nga muus gis nga lii waxuma la man rek waaye ku nekk daf ko war a ut
maa la wax loolu
lii jaaduwul rek ci place yi dafa jaadu ci kër yi jaadu ci béréb liggéeykaay compagnie yu mag yi
te boo ko amee nag te sa préjo sa xel dafay dal
wax dëgg yàlla bari na ñuy dox foog ne ñu ngi feebar te ragal a dem l'hôpital
maa la wax lii de
jërëjëf yow dama la yàgg bëgg a waaye tey la rawati nag
boo paree dem fa ñu jaay la ko boo àggee rek ñu dul la ko